Hello. How's everybody doing? Doing okay? Good. That's what I want to hear. I'm doing all right. This video again might be interrupted with some coughing. And if it is, then you would not be surprised. So, this evening, you can take a look at the temperature and the time. 16 degrees Celsius, 8:22 p.m. So kind of late to be making this video, but the research that I would be using I have already done. In fact, a couple of days ago I was going through some material, very easy to find actually. I somehow was reminded that the US government and federal agencies have not spoken about natural immunity, or rather that they deny natural immunity, and thus they are advocating for and pushing vaccines. So let me preface this by saying, making this video, that I am making this video now in February of 2022. It's already the 6th of February. And the Omicron variant is now pretty much, since last year, late November, early December, since then the Omicron variant has started and has gone through the world. That is how high the transmissibility is. And this month it should have covered this whole earth. Excuse me. If not, then definitely in March. So still there is a push for vaccines. It continues to happen because excuse me, one would expect that this would be the ideal time. Low pathogenicity of the Omicron variant, high transmissibility as we read in source after source, yet there is at-risk population. So this would already be the best time when people inevitably they're going to get infected and they would have immunity from infection. But still there are places where governments are emphasizing vaccination for the general population. I came across news of Israel having ordered their non-mRNA Novavax 5 million doses and plans for 5 million more. And I came across news also from Austria excuse me, about their vaccine mandate and the imposing of fines for those who are unvaccinated. So that would depend on their government, their demographics. And I went through their website, the government website, about the ethical considerations for issuing of mandates. So that is a different subject, but the literature I went through, I downloaded that PDF, was very smartly written and showed a keen awareness of the Austrian government about considerations before issuing of any mandates. So now that we have this background out of the way, or something that I would want you to keep in mind, let's go through these tabs. Let me already share with you how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 tabs that I have open are about the subject of natural immunity and vaccination in regards to COVID-19. These other tabs that I have open, one of the articles was recommended to me, and from here on I have some other references open which I would excuse me, probably not read in detail, but you'll find the links for these in the article that was recommended. So I'm not going to post their links separately. And I found another article, and you will see how all of this ties in together. So how long is this video going to be? I'm not going to make a prediction. Could be longer. I have a feeling it would be. And you will have the links. Okay, what I'll do is every tab I have open, I'll leave the link in the video description. So then you'll have every link that's open in front of me, you'll have it too. So let's start. Here is Johns Hopkins Medicine, and this article is called COVID-19 Vaccines Myth versus Fact. I would like for you to read the article in its entirety. But just to give you an idea that they do have awareness of what information or misinformation is going around and what their reply is. So this is a very significant, in fact, clarification from Johns Hopkins. And it is not a very long article, actually. Not a very long article. But everything they have covered here in very simple language, and this is from September 23, 2021. If you could just bear in mind, if you have come across the misinformation, how that was presented to you, the language, was it opinion? Was it based on some kind of information, some kind of hard data? And how is the countering of that misinformation? Whether you consider that to be the correct information, you consider Johns Hopkins to be the source of misinformation. So let's actually read this. Myth: the COVID-19 vaccine can affect women's fertility. Have you heard this piece of information? I'm not going to brand it as information or misinformation. I'm just going to say, they say it's a myth. So the fact is, the COVID-19 vaccine will not affect fertility. The truth is that the COVID-19 vaccine encourages the body to create copies of the spike protein found on the coronavirus's surface. This teaches the body's immune system to fight the virus that has that specific spike protein on it. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Confusion arose when a false report surfaced on social media saying that the spike protein on this coronavirus was the same as another spike protein called syncytin 1 that is involved in the growth and attachment of the placenta during pregnancy. Excuse me. The false report said that getting the COVID-19 vaccine would cause a woman's body to fight this different spike protein and affect her fertility. The two spike proteins are completely different and distinct, and getting the COVID-19 vaccine will not affect the fertility of women who are seeking to become pregnant, including through in vitro fertilization methods. During the Pfizer vaccine tests, 23 women volunteers involved in the study became pregnant, and the only one who suffered a pregnancy loss had not received the actual vaccine but a placebo. Then it says, getting COVID-19 on the other hand can have potentially serious impact on pregnancy and the mother's health. Learn more about coronavirus and pregnancy. Johns Hopkins Medicine encourages women to reach out to their medical providers to discuss other questions they have about COVID-19 as it relates to fertility or pregnancy. What a big difference between what is said to be the myth and what is said to be the fact. But what is on the side of the fact is that there was a study conducted, 23 women volunteers. Now, was Pfizer involved in the study? I do not know. It doesn't link to the study. But this is the claim. And if Johns Hopkins Medicine is making this claim, and it's found to be untrue, then you have every reason to question Johns Hopkins and the doctors who are involved in the writing of this article. Because you understand the implications of either information. What they're saying is totally different from what the myth is. Where you are inclined to put your faith is relevant, but you also have to go through the reason why. Science is not a matter of faith. It has to be based on evidence. As simple as that. Now, the gathering of evidence, the testing of evidence, involves human beings. So now, in this case, there is a woman who suffered a pregnancy loss, but that was from the placebo, according to Johns Hopkins. So, if that is the truth, and you go through the study, then what should you do about the people who promulgated this myth? It says can affect women's fertility, but in real life, when decisions are made, you would pick the vaccine or you would pick against the vaccine. And you may not have much of a choice about getting infected. The women may not have much of a choice. With the Omicron variant now going around, which woman gets infected or affected by the virus in what way is unpredictable. But this information is very important. So these are the kinds of myths they're aware of and they have to correct. Very important myth here. If I've already had COVID-19, I don't need a vaccine. Fact, evidence continues to indicate that getting COVID-19 vaccine is the best protection against getting COVID-19, whether you have already had COVID-19 or not. And they give you a link to a study published in August 2021, And they give you what they have learned through examining the evidence. What did they learn? A study published in August 2021 indicates that if you had COVID-19 before and are not vaccinated, your risk of getting reinfected is more than 2 times higher than for those who were infected and got vaccinated. While evidence suggests there is some level of immunity for those who previously had COVID, it is not known how long you're protected from getting COVID-19 again. Plus, the level of immunity provided by the vaccines after having COVID-19 is higher than the level of immunity for those who had COVID but were not subsequently vaccinated. Getting vaccinated provides greater protection to others since the vaccine helps reduce the spread of COVID-19. And you would find that there are beliefs that coincide with these points and beliefs that are different or opposite of what these conclusions are. I'm sorry about the sounds if you hear them coming from outside. It's the weekend and they're louder and busier than usual. I told them already, actually, that I would be busy, but it is what it is. Now, let's open this study, actually. This is the study. And conflict of interest statement. All authors have completed and submitted the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors form for disclosure of potential conflicts of interest. No potential conflicts of interest were disclosed. And that is what you want to see. The references are given here, and all the other similar articles and citations. You can look as far in depth as you wish to. I could spend more time on just this one article, but you see, again here, what an important thing they have discussed. So if you don't look at any of the other articles, it is up to you. I'll leave the links for all. Every tab I have opened, I'll leave a link for that. But you can see how important this is. Researchers rushed the development of the COVID-19 vaccine, so its effectiveness and safety cannot be trusted. How do they answer that? Getting the COVID-19 vaccine means I can stop wearing my mask and taking coronavirus precautions. How they answer it, you can read it. Mind you, this is not gospel truth, so you have to make the judgment. They are writing as an institution writes, and decisions are made by personal judgment, personal discretion. I don't know where people make decisions for themselves in the same way an institution addresses people. When you're in consultation with a doctor, the exchange of information is totally different. You are concentrating on your case, your symptoms, your condition, your prescriptions, and the doctor is in consideration of those things, your medical history, and what you expect to achieve from the treatment. That is a different kind of world, and this is an institution sending out information to everyone. But the information is here. No one can say the information is not available. That is the thing to remember. Let's go to the other article. COVID natural immunity, what you need to know. What is immunity? They answer that. What is natural immunity? They tell you that too. And it's in very easy to understand language. What is vaccine-induced immunity for COVID-19? They answer that, simple language. If I have natural immunity, do I still need a COVID vaccine? Yes, the COVID-19 vaccines are recommended. Again, this is not the language of mandate. It says, yes, the COVID-19 vaccines are recommended even if you had COVID-19. At present, evidence from Johns Hopkins Medicine and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, supports getting a COVID-19 vaccine as the best protection against getting COVID-19, whether you've already had the virus or not. And they will give you more details. And which piece of information would you focus on? I always say this when you go through information. For instance, you'd say, well, I am not going to read the whole document. All right. Well, what if you miss this? It says immunity varies for individuals. Immune response can differ in people who get COVID-19 and recover from the illness. The FDA authorized and approved vaccines have been given to almost 200 million people in the US alone and have strong data supporting their effectiveness. Delta variant and future coronavirus variants. So, should you be reading this and coming to your own conclusion, or should you just not read it at all? That is the point I'm trying to get across. And Johns Hopkins research on natural immunity for COVID-19 and COVID vaccines. There are links given, and this is from their own website. And there's a letter also in the Journal of the American Medical Association on November 1, 2021. This was published on November 23, 2021, so not old information. Excuse me. But as you can see, the information, though it's from Johns Hopkins Medicine, it is in rather easy to understand language. I only wanted to show you the paper that they have written. It's on their site, and it should not be a trouble to go through. Naturally acquired SARS-CoV-2 immunity persists for up to 11 months following infection. Now, isn't that interesting? And when did this come out? 2021, October. So how can someone say that natural immunity is denied, or they don't believe in natural immunity? How is that statement justified? Similar articles, if you want to take a look. Citations, if you want to take a look. References are given there. And I am not going through the whole thing, but in methods, from April 2020 to February 2021, we enrolled 228 donors. At each study visit, subjects either donated plasma or had study samples drawn only. Anti-SARS-CoV-2 donor testing was performed using the Vitros anti-SARS-CoV-2 total and IgG assays and an in-house fluorescence reduction neutralization assay. So healthcare professionals would be interested in excuse me, All day I was all right. It's the talking that brings the cough on. Conclusions. Our data suggests that immunological memory is acquired in most individuals infected with SARS-CoV-2 and is sustained in a majority of patients for up to 11 months after recovery. Clinical trials registration, and it's lovely. You click on this, you can go to the clinical trial, read the details. And that's the way it should be. Now, CDC. Now, if the CDC was controlled by Pfizer, by Moderna, by Johnson & Johnson, and they were completely taken over by the corporate interests of those pharmaceutical companies, why would they publish an article like this? The possibility of COVID-19 after vaccination, breakthrough infections. Why? To give a talking point to those who are vaccine hesitant? Because it is here. What we know about vaccine breakthrough infections. Vaccine breakthrough infections are expected. COVID-19 vaccines are effective at preventing most infections. However, like other vaccines, they're not 100% effective. Fully vaccinated people with a vaccine breakthrough infection are less likely to develop serious illness than those who are unvaccinated and get COVID-19. Excuse me. Oh, maybe some of this is from the aftershave. I shaved. So I put some aftershave on. Maybe that is what's causing the problem. I should have thought of that. Anyhow. Even when fully vaccinated people develop symptoms, they tend to be less severe symptoms than in unvaccinated people. This means they're much less likely to be hospitalized or die than people who are not vaccinated. And the fourth bullet point is people who get vaccine breakthrough infections can be contagious. So they're not covering over anything that they found. They're just stating it as they found it. And in fact, some of this information can easily be used as criticism of vaccines, especially the criticism against mRNA vaccines, because those are the ones used in the US. But practically, what are they saying? Fully vaccinated people with a vaccine breakthrough infection are less likely to develop serious illness. So those who should be thinking in terms of getting vaccinated, the at-risk population, that has not been entirely clear about COVID-19. I'd admit that. Who are the at-risk population? So some of the results you'd find about infections and the subsequent syndrome, you think, why is this young person, a man, young man, why is he affected in the way that this person 15 years older than this healthy male is not affected the same way? Why is that? So that is a good question. But for both, again, the CDC is addressing not you, not one person. The CDC is addressing the whole country based on the knowledge that they have. And their advice is constantly leaning in the direction of getting vaccinated, despite what they are mentioning here. They're admitting it has limitations. Here's evidence. This was updated on December 17, 2021. So very recently. This is from the NIH. Excuse me, January 26, 2021. More than a year ago. Lasting immunity found after recovery from COVID-19. I was a bit surprised when I saw this actually. But to find this document was not difficult. Once I started searching, I came across this document, I would say within the first 10 minutes of my search. Within the first 10 minutes. And at a glance, I'm just going to read what it says at a glance. The link you'll find in the description. The immune systems of more than 95% of people who recovered from COVID-19 had durable memories of the virus up to 8 months after infection. We just read in another one, 11 months. Now, if these are lab tests, they're saying memory. So that is that is a criticism that a doctor, healthcare professional could point out. Right? How are you saying there's a durable memory up to 8 months after infection? You mean in the 9th month the body forgets, the immune system forgets about the immune response that was 9 months ago? How are you saying the memory finishes? Now that is a legitimate criticism. I have to say it's because of the mutations and so on and so forth. You can take them to task on that. Again, this is NIH, but that doesn't mean it's gospel truth. Like it's often said, this is gospel truth. This is the truth. All right. Second bullet point. The results provide hope that people receiving SARS-CoV-2 vaccines will develop similar lasting immune memories after vaccination. So again, they're basing their, what they call it, at a glance, you could say summary or conclusions. You can see what they're basing it on. In the related links, I happened to come across this 2 days ago and I still remembered it. Immune cells for common cold may recognize SARS-CoV-2. This is also on their website. And if this was, suppose I was working for Pfizer, 40 years of research, and we have made, no single person could, my team has made, it's given the final concluding touches to the mRNA vaccine. Now, all those billions of dollars in research and development, it's time now to bring it to the market. All that time, all that effort, now it's time to put it to the test. And we're confident about our product. And here the NIH tells you, immune cells for common cold may recognize SARS-CoV-2. I'd say here, Mr. NIH, here are $10 million. We forbid you from printing this, putting this on your website. You said 10 million? Yep, 10 million. We don't want you to put this on your website. Could Pfizer do that? Do they have the means to do it? Of course they have the means to do it. But here it is, and this will be in the video description. At a glance, a study of blood samples taken before the COVID-19 pandemic showed that some people already had certain immune cells that recognize SARS-CoV-2. When was this printed? August 18, 2020. Second, these immune cells also reacted with coronaviruses that cause common colds. Third bullet point, the findings suggest that existing immune cells may help account for the wide range of symptoms experienced by people with COVID-19. Excellent. Symptoms suggest existing immune cells. Did you notice that? That is an important thing to remember. Next article. Immunity types. Very simple to read. Again, this is from CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. What are the different immunity types? Active immunity, passive immunity, related pages. Under active immunity, they have natural immunity and vaccine-induced immunity. So if someone said to me, you know what? The CDC are corrupt. They deny natural immunity. And what I would do is I would go to the CDC website, which I did, and I typed in natural immunity. And this was one of the recommendations. Very easy to read. And here it is. Now, what specifically they say about natural immunity in regards to COVID-19, you could research more. But to say that they deny it, I mean, some people really believe that they deny it altogether. And this article definitely has been up there. It's in front of you. And when you look at the related pages, these are system-generated related pages. Nobody actually handpicked the related pages. These are automatically suggested. So if I was working for the CDC website, I was one of the developers, or I was someone who was putting content on the website. By the way, this is from September 24, 2021. So this is definitely, you could call it in the COVID-19 era. And the related pages, coming back to that, these are automatically suggested by the software that is used to build a website. Every website, I mean, just about every website has this feature. That's how it works. The content management system will put these related pages based on number of criteria, and you have these, and if you want to look into any of those links, you want to explore more, you can. But let's not say that they deny it. That is simply not true. Now, we are at the point where I'm at the, or in the recommended article. This is a 10-minute read, and it's by somebody I don't know, Dr. Jason Fung. It says there, he's a nephrologist and New York Times bestselling author, and interested in type 2 diabetes reversal and intermittent fasting. So I'm not going to comment about the person because I just don't know him. But this is the introduction to the article. Obviously has been read and commented on by so many people. The idea of evidence-based medicine, EBM, is great. The reality, though, not so much. Human perception is often flawed, so the premise of EBM is to formally study medical treatments, and there have certainly been some successes. And is given the example of angioplasty, and you can read about that. These are the highlighted quotes. Dr. Marcia Angel, former editor-in-chief of NEJM, wrote in 2009, "The case against science is straightforward. Much of the scientific literature, perhaps half, may simply be untrue." 2009. And the other one, "It is simply no longer possible to believe much of the clinical research that is published or to rely on the judgment of trusted physicians or authoritative medical guidelines. I take no pleasure in this conclusion, which I reached slowly and reluctantly over my 2 decades as an editor. Well, the first one, I believe, was by Richard Horton, editor-in-chief of The Lancet, in 2015. Actually, I have these open here. Marcia Angle, you see, this is the link. America's Other Drug Problem: How the Drug Industry Distorts Medicine and Politics. But then I looked, and there's no abstract available. And if you want to read the similar articles, you can, but that article is not there. The abstract is not there. This is the one in the Lancet. What is medicine's 5 sigma? From April 11, 2015. And you can download the PDF if you want. So it was published April 11 April 2015. This is something on the Lancet website in this article. Can bad scientific practices be fixed? Part of the problem is that no one is incentivized to be right. Instead, scientists are incentivized to be productive and innovative. Would a Hippocratic oath for science help? Certainly don't add more layers of research red tape. So, kind of a philosophical musing. But going back to this article, this is what has been the top highlight in this publication in Medium. The medical profession is being bought by the pharmaceutical industry, not only in terms of the practice of medicine, but also in terms of teaching and research. The academic institutions of this country are allowing themselves to be the paid agents of the pharmaceutical industry. I think it's disgraceful. Now, when was this article written? April 10, 2018. Let me say something which I know from prior knowledge. There have been certain periods of time. I don't know if that coincides with the writing of this article or what was mentioned in those other publications like The Lancet. There are certain periods of time, certain years, like 1 or 2 years, when there's an expose. It's found out that a certain manufacturer, a pharmaceutical company, pushed a medicine and they were corrupt about hiding some information regarding that. Or they were advertising in a way that persuaded health practitioners and patients to prescribe it and not pay as much attention as they could have to the side effects or the harm. Now, whether it's GlaxoSmithKline or it's Pfizer or it's Johnson & Johnson, now in those years, reports have come in and evidence has been accumulated and now proven that yes, there is something wrong with this medicine. And these are serious side effects that should not have been ignored. Did the company know about it? Yes, they did know about it. But they minimized it. Or they put it in a language where it would seem like it was not significant. And so it happened that in those years, when these revelations came out and there were court cases, that now the public has suddenly been awakened. Mind you, though, the drug company has a portfolio of 50 or 60 different products. I'm saying products because those could be chemical agents like drugs, those could be medical products like prosthetics, and so much, whatever they're involved in. Diagnostic machinery and whatnot, could have a huge portfolio. But One failed product is enough to drag the name of a company down. I'm saying all these things, and right in front of me on the screen, there is this subheading, Selective publication. It says negative trials. Those that show no benefit for the drugs are likely to be suppressed. For example, in the case of antidepressants, 3637 studies that were favorable to drugs were published, but of the studies not favorable to drugs, a paltry 3 out of 36 were published. So selective publication. Now, since he is a nephrologist, obviously a doctor, he has been inside the system. He has seen things. And from specialization to specialization, from hospital to hospital, the kind of patients you get, your experiences are different. But his observations are obviously from as a professional. So it deserves to be listened to. This is, again, for putting faith in papers. So he's speaking about industry payments to editors, of journal editors. So these are, figures given here, and which particular journal it is, and how much. Of course, I'm going to leave the link for this article in the video description so you can look at it. He has given a summary in bullet points. What are the criticisms? He says, here's a damning list of all the problems of EBM. Selective publication, rigged outcomes, advertorials, reprint revenues, bribery of journal editors, publication bias, financial conflicts of interest. Is there a solution to all these problems? Are there solutions? Yes, there can be solutions to every single one of them. But so far, that would be it has to be brought into practice. And changes don't happen overnight. Big changes don't happen overnight. And while I'm on that thought, there's this other article I looked at. I found it as I was researching the same subject. The tone of language is different here. The links are different here. But it's a very good article. And people don't trust scientific research when companies are involved. So, in this article, they are also siding with the companies. Are they just the devil? They could do no good. Is that how we should think about it? Or can they do good? Now consider what they say here. It says, but industry generally has a long and impressive history of supporting scientific research and technical development. Industry-supported research has generated widely adopted technologies, driven the evolution of entire economic sectors, improved processes that were harmful to public health and the environment, and won Nobel Prizes. As soon as I see the phrase Nobel Prizes, the name ivermectin comes to mind. That was a long project by Merck, for which there was a Nobel Prize given to the involved doctors. Furthermore, it says, and as scientists not currently affiliated with the industry scramble to fund their research in an era of tight budgets, big companies have money to underwrite science. Can this lack of trust be overcome? Moving forward, it will be essential to address incentives such as short-term profit or individual recognition that can encourage poor research in any institutional context. It's a very good point, actually, because when individuals start looking for their own recognition, already there's a very strong bias. And lack of funds promoting that bias, individual recognition, can be a very strong incentive. Very strong incentive. And that tendency can as easily be seen in those who are against the pharmaceutical companies and the pharma culture as it can be seen in the pharma culture. But let me tell you this also. If you're working in a research team and you are handsomely rewarded for your efforts, there's no problem with funding because some big companies funding the research. And you're free to work with your team. By free, I mean you can do your research and publish the results. The reward of the research, the actual work, and the monetary incentive of being paid for doing the research because of your ability is good enough. You don't want to, or you don't necessarily have to become a public figure. You don't need to be a public figure. If you're working on mRNA vaccines for the last 20 years and your name appears in a few journals over and over again, do you actually need to go on some kind of a TV program or to a radio station or a podcast like Joe Rogan Experience to advertise yourself? No, you don't. You could go if you're invited, if you're asked for as an expert to explain about the technology. Of course, you're capable, and if you so desire, you could go there, but you could so easily turn it down and say, no thank you, I'm not interested. And it's hardly ever an individual's effort. Hardly ever. It's not an individual's effort. There's never, in scientific breakthroughs, in research, it's never an individual's effort. It's a team effort. And there's collaboration and so much time. And that idea of becoming famous or influential, it doesn't count for much because you're so busy in your work, in the research, and you're being rewarded for it. You go to work, you stay there, you come back home, you go there the next day, you continue your research. 1 year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years go by, 5 years, 10 years have gone by. Nobody at CNN knows who you are. Nobody at any news network knows who you are. You're just doing your work. You're known in the institution and you're doing your work. And that work and the results is the reward. Because you don't know, maybe after 10 years you're still not able to achieve the results you want to. That is always a possibility. So, coming on to some new links, because this is nearly going on 1 hour. Payments by U.S. pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturers to U.S. medical journal editors, retrospective observational study, BMJ. If you want to take a look, excuse me, here is an article you could take a look at. It's all here. Now, after so long, I've come to this point where I'm coming to an article that I wanted to include in this video. I could make another video, and I might make another video about this. But when I was going through all this, I came to the point where I said, why not do a little 3-word search on vaccine hesitancy reasons? And I came across this article from AAFP. And what is AAFP? It's an organization from 1958. And I opened this page to look at the history of this organization, the AAFP Foundation. I think I won't change the page, but what I want to look at is this article. 4 reasons for COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy among healthcare workers and ways to counter them. Why I opened this article is because this video began with the discussion about natural immunity and then vaccine-induced immunity. Now, of course, just keep a simple thing in mind. If you don't have natural immunity, all immunity is natural, really. Whether it comes from the vaccine or it comes from the infection, nature has to be doing something everywhere. If you inject a dead person with the vaccine and their immune system is no longer working, what do you think would happen? How would their immune system react? It won't react. I don't know, I haven't done a study on this, but I'm just saying, what I'm saying is this: vaccines also depend on your natural immunity. So you could say infection-induced immunity or vaccine-induced immunity. That might be more accurate. So this is a very good article. I'd like for you to go through this, but what I'm going to show you now, because this is almost going in 1 hour, and I'll spend a little bit more time, maybe 10 minutes or less on this article. So we'll just jump to the points. Safety and efficacy concerns. While the COVID-19 vaccines are not yet fully approved for commercial use by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, the FDA has issued emergency use authorization, EUA, of several vaccines due to the public health emergency, based on data from clinical trials that included tens of thousands of participants. Excuse me. Still, the condensed timeline in which the vaccines were developed and received EUA has raised safety and efficacy concerns for some HCWs, healthcare workers. However, there is evidence that vaccine data can help assuage these concerns. Among HCWs, knowledge of a specific vaccine increased their willingness to recommend that vaccine. For instance, concerns about the speed of COVID-19 vaccine development are often based on the mistaken belief that mRNA technology used for the first 2 COVID-19 vaccines authorized in the US is entirely new. But the first successful use of mRNA technology in animals was reported more than 30 years ago, and tremendous mRNA advances have been made over the past decade, and that is correct. Similarly, here is point number 2. I would like for you to read through this patiently and maybe discuss it with someone else. Preference for physiological immunity. Herd immunity can be achieved through vaccination or via previous infections, which eventually lead to natural or physiological immunity. Some Israeli HCWs, as well as some Americans and Canadians in the general population, have expressed a preference for physiologic immunity rather than obtaining immunity via vaccination. Individuals who believe the seriousness of COVID-19 has been exaggerated perceive the risk of vaccination to be greater than the risk of infection. Very good coverage, admitting the facts. The difference in consequences between these 2 approaches to reaching herd immunity must be clearly communicated to HCWs who currently prefer physiologic immunity over vaccination. Achieving herd immunity through previous infection would take significantly longer, incurring an immense cost in healthcare resources as well as lives. If you want to take look at the references that they have, 10, 13, and 15 are the footnotes most likely, then please do. Another big one, distrust in government and health organizations. A key factor in gaining acceptance of a new vaccine is trust. Media misinformation can cause public doubts about disease spread, prevention, lethality, and vaccine safety, and can promote mistrust of the government, policymakers, health authorities, and pharmaceutical companies. Again, I really like the way this article is written. It's like they know what they're talking about. Continuing on from the article. Many members of the public, including HCWs, have been exposed to conspiracy theories, especially on social media, such as the claims that novel coronavirus was intentionally created by the government or that health organizations have exaggerated COVID-19's lethality for pharmaceutical and political gain. Such misinformation calls into question authorities' integrity and undermines efforts to increase COVID-19 vaccine uptake. Now, as far as the involvement of, well, I'll name the agency, NIH, in the creation of SARS-CoV-2 in Wuhan, China, with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Well, there is a case to be made for what's it called? Gain of function research. When was this article written? I don't know. I haven't looked at it. But what it's saying is essentially true, but maybe they didn't have the time to check for this particular aspect of it. So let's not say that that is not a valid concern. But here's something I want to say. The government is not a person. There's one little part of the government doing something somewhere, and the other part of the government doesn't even know it is happening. The government is a huge thing. It's not a person. But to simplify that, if there are 3 people in a home, 3, husband, wife, and their son, is there a chance the son is doing something and the mother doesn't know? Or the father is doing something and the son doesn't know? Maybe they get together in the evening and over supper they discuss their day. But there's every chance they all have their secrets. And the government is not 3 people living in a home. The government is a huge, huge thing. Excuse me. And the coordination of the agencies of a government is very important. Communication is very important, but doesn't always happen. Even in one institution where 100 people are working, 100 people to be on the same page for every single thing, day after day, all the days of the year, is a tremendous achievement. And very likely 100 people will not be on the same page. Some at the top level, the first top 4 officers or management will be at a different level. They keep some information to themselves. Somebody working on the factory floor has no clue and is not interested in what the top management is thinking of or what they're planning to do or what decisions they're making. So even in 100 people, the government is much more than that. Just keep that view in mind. I believe the fourth point is the last point. Yep. Autonomy and personal freedom. HCWs in rural Americans report that a sense of personal freedom informs their attitudes toward the COVID-19 vaccines. Rural Americans. That is an important thing. Clinicians are held to the standard of informed consent when recommending treatments to their patients, and while COVID-19 vaccination remains elective, it is understandable that HCWs prefer to make their own choices about it. Yes, indeed. Motivational interviewing may increase the effectiveness of pro-vaccine messages in these instances. In a postpartum intervention to promote vaccination, the use of motivational interviewing increased infant vaccination rates by 9%. So, I'm not saying whether I agree with it or disagree with it. I'm just mentioning this, and I'm not even recommending one way or another. I'm just going through this, and where you disagree with them, where you agree with them, that would be entirely your own choice. When they talk about, what are they talking about? Infant vaccination. Now, if there's a vaccine that has been around for 50 years, that is a totally different thing. And the severity of the disease, now that what we know about it, and we have information on the vaccine, and something that's new, although they mentioned that mRNA technology has been around for a long time, and the vaccine technology has also been under development for over a decade. And that's true, you can research that. But go through this information and always keep the agreement or disagreement up to yourself. Who is going to, nobody's forcing you to read this in a way as if, yes, now it's written, so I agree with everything. No, that is not how we read things. Information is for you to understand something, think about it, come to a conclusion. If you think infants should not be vaccinated, any kind of vaccine, forget about mRNA or traditional vaccines, regardless of disease, that is something you have to decide. It's your family. You have to decide that. But let no one say the information is not available. That should not be the case. And I'm not recommending them as an organization. I'm just looking at an article which I came across, and I found this article to be good. Maybe I'll find another article from them which I would say, what? What is this? I don't like what they write. And I might not like that article. But this is a good one. This is why I say this is a good one, because they identified the 4 points. Safety and efficacy concerns, right on. Preference for physiological immunity, right on. Distrust in government and health organizations, yes sir, that is true. Autonomy and personal freedom, yes sirree, I have seen that. So, they know what they're talking about. How they answer it, and how much you agree or disagree with them, that is up to you. As I said, I'm going to spend around 10 minutes on this, and I have spent nearly 10 minutes on this in reading and expressing my observations. This is how I usually do my research, minus the talking. I'll tell you a little secret. The longest I have done research in a day is probably 11 hours, maybe more. And I kept up this practice of research long after my education was completed. I kept this up for almost a period of 3 months. So I'm very used to doing research. I'm not going to tell you what it was about, but I was studying about some hormones, and I was studying about the effect of some medicines on those hormones. And for 3 months I studied it, and I shared my finding with the doctor, and he was amazed at how thoroughly I had gone through thousands of documents to find. He said, "You have found a nugget of gold." And he said 99% of physicians he knows of would not have found what you have found. But I'm telling you, it took 3 months, thousands of documents to go through. And where I found it, it was mentioned somewhere close to a footnote somewhere. So that is how tedious it can get. But I was rewarded for that research. That made a very big difference to my life, lives of others, and to that doctor and his associates. So I was very happy to have done that. That is all I'm going to tell you. Now we're close to the end of this video. Thank you very much for your time. If you had the patience to listen through the whole thing, it's time for me now to say goodbye and good night. I'll see you another time. Thank you and take care.